Josiah, thanks so much for having me. My least favorite question in job interviews is unfortunately one of the most common questions. You've probably already been asked this if you've ever been on a job interview. It's the question, what's your greatest weakness? And I'll be honest with you, there is a lot of terrible advice out there about how to answer this question. They'll say things like you should turn a strength into a weakness, and people end up lying about how they work too hard or they care too much. Or they'll talk about how you should just make up a weakness that isn't really a deal killer and isn't really all that significant. Like, oh, I have a hard time setting boundaries between work and life. In truth, to understand how to answer this question, we have to understand why people ask this question. Managers don't manage one individual person. They manage a team, and everyone on that team has strengths and weaknesses. And the hiring manager wants to know when they're evaluating you as a candidate how your strengths and weaknesses fit with the rest of the team. So if you're weak in a certain area, but they know they have other people on the team that are strong in that area, that's good. That's what they want to know, because they can rely on other people to help grow you and improve in your weakness. And they know that it's not a deal killer, because they know that not everyone in their team is going to be weak in that area. So knowing that, the best answer to the what's your greatest weakness question is really twofold. The first part is an honest interpretation of your knowledge, skills, and abilities and where you're potentially lacking. Now, all right, it could be that you work too hard, but I doubt it, right? I like to think I work too hard too, but I also watch Netflix a lot. It needs to be something like maybe it's time management, maybe it's organizational skills, maybe it takes you a while to warm up to certain people. Maybe you're more introverted and you see that as a weakness. A side note, that is not a weakness, but all of that aside. The best answer is an honest answer, but an answer that's followed up with the second part, which is how you're improving on it. So whatever your weakness is, maybe it is that I have trouble managing multiple different deadlines. Whatever your weakness is, then say, but I have learned. And then mention to the interview what you're doing to counteract it. But I have learned that I can rely on other people to keep me accountable. So now I ask people to remind me a few days before every deadline to make sure that I'm paying attention to it. Or you could say, but I've learned that the app on my phone that sets reminders can remind me. Or I've learned to schedule things and put certain things on my calendar to make sure that the work gets done. Whatever tool you're using to try and overcome that weakness. What this does for you and for the interviewer is it, again, lets them know exactly where your weaknesses might fit into the rest of the team. But more importantly, it shows a level of maturity and depth and commitment to personal growth that you are working on each of those weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. That's okay. What's not okay is to be aware of a weakness and take no action to improve it. And that, if you say you work too hard or you care too much or one of the strengths into weaknesses thing, none of that comes through. But if you say, here's my weakness, but I have learned, you show the type of growth and development and maturity and commitment to improvement that every interviewer is looking for. My least favorite question in job interview. Did you just... Okay.
No.
Are you intentionally delayed? I figured you'd just start. Okay, cool. Sorry. I was like a sentence and a half in before you did anything.
Yeah, it's just normal processing time for interview.
Okay, all right, sorry.
That's okay.
Well, as I said, and it's great for both you and the researcher. I just said researcher. Interviewer.